For the first time in the history of bilateral relations, an official delegation from the Philippine Department of National Defense has visited Kyiv, where both countries agreed to begin negotiations on a proposed drone deal aimed at expanding defense cooperation and sharing Ukraine's wartime experience. The timing is significant. Ukraine has become one of the world's leading innovators in drone warfare, while the Philippines is rapidly modernizing its military as tensions continue to rise in the South China Sea.
273 degrees true, speed 8 knots.
So why is Manila looking to a country fighting Europe's largest war? What exactly is a drone deal? And why does Ukraine see the Philippines as an increasingly important partner in the Indo-Pacific? The answers go far beyond drones. This visit also reflects Ukraine's growing effort to build new defense partnerships in Asia, while the Philippines looks for practical lessons from one of the most battle-tested militaries in the world. But before exploring what this could mean for the Indo-Pacific, let's first examine what was actually agreed in Kyiv. And just as importantly, what wasn't.
Ukraine has unleashed what appears to be its largest drone strike in months on Moscow.
On July 24, 2026, Ukraine hosted the first official delegation from the Philippine Department of National Defense in the history of bilateral relations. The delegation, led by Philippine Undersecretary of National Defense Salvador Maison, met with Ihor Zhofva, deputy head of the Office of the President of Ukraine. The visit builds on the bilateral dialogue launched after President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to the Philippines in 2024, reflecting steadily expanding ties between Kyiv and Manila. Defense cooperation was the main focus of the meeting. Ukrainian officials introduced the concept of a drone deal, and both sides agreed to begin negotiations on a future agreement. Their respective teams will establish a dialogue to share Ukraine's wartime experience and explore new defense practices based on lessons learned on the battlefield.
I think it's also very important in our bilateral relation between us and Philippines. We can share with the Philippines digitalization of our country, how to manage in a very challenging period. We can share our cybersecurity experience.
However, it's equally important to understand what hasn't happened. No drone purchase has been announced. No procurement contract has been signed. No joint production agreement or weapons transfer has been confirmed. At this stage, both governments have agreed only to begin discussions on what a future drone deal could include. The talks also extended beyond defense. Ukraine and the Philippines discussed strengthening cooperation in the Indo-Pacific, while Kyiv sought Manila's support for obtaining ASEAN sectoral dialogue partner status. With the Philippines serving as ASEAN chair this year, Ukrainian officials also welcomed the growing diplomatic relationship following the opening of Ukraine's embassy in the Philippines, and expressed hope that the Philippines will soon establish a fully functioning embassy in Kyiv. Although no formal defense agreement emerged from the visit, it marked an important milestone. For the first time, Ukraine and the Philippines have formally opened negotiations on structured defense cooperation, setting the stage for what could become a broader strategic partnership. To understand why this visit matters, we first need to understand what Ukraine means by a drone deal. Despite the name, a drone deal is far more than an agreement to buy or sell drones. It is Ukraine's new framework for long-term defense cooperation, built on the battlefield experience it has gained during more than 4 years of full-scale war. Under this framework, partner countries can cooperate on joint production, technology transfer, military training, cybersecurity, defense innovation, and industrial collaboration. The goal is not simply to export equipment, but to share Ukraine's operational experience while expanding defense partnerships and opening new markets. Kyiv announced that it has now concluded 9 drone deals, while negotiations with around 20 more countries are already underway. The initiative has also gained strong backing from the European Union. On July 16, Brussels launched the EU-Ukraine drone deal, bringing together Europe's industrial capacity with Ukraine's battlefield-tested expertise to accelerate the joint development and production of next-generation drones and counter-drone systems. As European Commission officials noted, the partnership is a two-way exchange. Ukraine gains industrial investment, while Europe gains real-world operational knowledge that cannot be replicated in peacetime. That broader context makes the Philippines' involvement especially significant. Manila is not simply discussing a bilateral agreement with Ukraine. It is becoming part of a much larger strategy through which Kyiv is transforming wartime innovation into long-term international defense partnerships. Rather than exporting only military hardware, Ukraine is increasingly exporting combat experience, technology, and defense expertise. And that network is now expanding beyond Europe into the Indo-Pacific. So why would the Philippines be interested in a country fighting a war thousands of kilometers away? The answer lies in how modern warfare is changing. Over the past several years, the Philippines has faced repeated confrontations in the South China Sea, including water cannon incidents, dangerous maneuvers, and close encounters around disputed features. Those incidents have reinforced a growing reality in Manila. Future maritime security will depend not only on warships and fighter jets, but also on unmanned systems that can monitor, deter, and respond to threats at a fraction of the cost. Ukraine's war has demonstrated just how rapidly that transformation is taking place. Over more than 4 years of combat, Ukraine has pioneered the large-scale use of surveillance drones, FPV attack drones, unmanned maritime surface vessels, and AI-enabled intelligence systems. Together, these relatively inexpensive technologies have repeatedly challenged a much larger military, reshaping how modern warfare is fought. Many of those lessons are directly relevant to the Indo-Pacific. As part of its military modernization program, the Philippines is expanding its intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities, strengthening maritime domain awareness, and encouraging the development of locally produced unmanned systems to better monitor and protect its vast archipelagic waters. This is where Ukraine offers something few countries can. It is not just exporting drone technology, it is exporting combat experience. Ukrainian defense companies are already expanding into Asia as regional governments increase defense spending and seek proven unmanned technologies. Companies such as U-Force are pursuing partnerships in countries including Japan, while Ukrainian officials have explored broader cooperation across the Indo-Pacific. At the same time, U.S. military planners have examined how lessons from Ukraine's Black Sea operations could apply to the island chains stretching from Japan and Taiwan to the Philippines. That makes the proposed drone deal far more than a technology partnership. For the Philippines, the real value may not be a specific drone platform. It is the opportunity to learn how Ukraine integrates unmanned systems into military operations, adapts to electronic warfare, coordinates drones across land and sea, and rapidly innovates under combat conditions. Those are capabilities that cannot be fully developed through peacetime exercises alone. They have been forged in one of the most technologically demanding conflicts of the 21st century, making Ukraine an increasingly valuable defense partner for countries preparing for a more contested security environment. The partnership is not one-sided. Just as the Philippines sees value in Ukraine's battlefield experience, Ukraine also has strong reasons to deepen ties with the Philippines. For much of the war, Kyiv's diplomacy focused on securing military aid, financial assistance, and political support. While those priorities remain, Ukraine is now pursuing a broader strategy, turning its wartime innovations into long-term defense partnerships that strengthen both its security and its defense industry. The drone deal is a key part of that strategy. Beyond security cooperation, it creates opportunities for joint production, technology transfer, industrial collaboration, cybersecurity, and access to new markets. Ukraine is increasingly positioning itself not only as a recipient of military assistance, but also as a provider of battlefield-tested expertise and advanced defense technologies. That shift is already becoming visible beyond Europe. Ukraine has signed drone deals with several countries, while negotiations with many others continue. Reuters has also reported that Kyiv is expanding drone exports, including a reported agreement to supply drones for the U.S. Department of Defense's Drone Dominance program, further highlighting the growing international demand for Ukrainian unmanned systems and combat experience. Ukraine, the Philippines is an especially attractive partner. It is undertaking one of the most ambitious military modernization programs in its history, occupies a strategic position between the South China Sea, the Philippine Sea, and the Luzon Strait, and currently serves as ASEAN chair. giving Manila greater diplomatic influence across Southeast Asia. During the Kyiv meeting, Ukrainian officials also expressed hope that the Philippines would support Ukraine's bid for ASEAN sectoral dialogue partner status, underscoring that the visit was about diplomacy as well as defense cooperation. Viewed from that perspective, the Philippines is more than a potential customer. It is a gateway to Southeast Asia, a rapidly modernizing defense partner, and an important link in Ukraine's broader effort to expand its presence in the Indo-Pacific. If the partnership continues to grow, both sides stand to benefit. The Philippines gains access to Ukraine's battlefield expertise, while Ukraine strengthens its defense partnerships, expands industrial opportunities, and deepens its strategic engagement in one of the world's most important regions. This brings us to the biggest question. Could Ukraine's battlefield experience eventually influence security in the South China Sea? The answer is possibly, but not in the way many headlines might suggest. Ukraine and the Philippines face very different security challenges. Ukraine is fighting a large-scale conventional war against Russia, while the Philippines is focused on protecting its maritime claims, countering gray zone coercion, and avoiding a wider military conflict. Even so, many of the concepts developed in Ukraine could prove valuable in the Indo-Pacific. Over more than 4 years of war, Ukraine has demonstrated how drones can compensate for conventional disadvantages. Maritime drones have challenged a much larger navy, reconnaissance drones have transformed battlefield awareness, FPV drones have provided precision strike capability, and constant adaptation to electronic warfare has reshaped how modern militaries operate. Those lessons are attracting global attention. Military planners increasingly view unmanned systems not as supporting assets, but as a core element of future warfare. That is one reason Ukrainian defense expertise is drawing interest far beyond Europe. For the Philippines, however, the objective is not to replicate Ukraine's war. Instead, Manila is looking to strengthen maritime surveillance, island defense, maritime domain awareness, deterrence, and responses to gray zone activities in disputed waters such as the South China Sea. That is why the real value of this partnership may not be a specific drone platform. It may lie in understanding how Ukraine integrates unmanned systems into military doctrine, adapts to electronic warfare, coordinates operations across multiple domains, and evolves tactics under constant operational pressure. The agreement announced in Kyiv reflects that approach. Rather than focusing on hardware transfers, both countries agreed to establish a dialogue centered on sharing wartime experience and introducing new defense practices, suggesting that knowledge transfer is the partnership's immediate priority. Whether those lessons eventually reshape Philippine military doctrine remains to be seen. But as unmanned systems become increasingly central to maritime security, Ukraine's combat experience could help the Philippines strengthen its defenses while adapting to one of the world's most contested maritime regions. Before drawing broader conclusions, it's important to separate confirmed facts from informed analysis. Despite the attention surrounding this announcement, no drone deal has actually been signed between Ukraine and the Philippines. There has been no procurement contract, no announcement of a specific drone platform, no agreement on joint production, and no confirmation of any weapons transfer. According to the Office of the President of Ukraine, both governments have agreed only to begin negotiations and establish a dialogue through their respective teams. At this stage, the scope, timeline, and eventual outcome of those discussions remain unknown. That distinction matters because it helps us understand what this visit really represents. This is not yet a story about drones being delivered to the Philippines. It is a story about the changing nature of international defense cooperation. For much of the war, Ukraine was primarily viewed as a country seeking military assistance from its partners. Today, that picture is gradually changing. As its defense industry continues to innovate under the pressures of modern warfare, Ukraine is increasingly positioning itself as an exporter of military knowledge, operational expertise, and defense innovation. Kyiv is building partnerships not only across Europe, but also with countries beyond the continent that are looking to strengthen their own security capabilities. That shift reflects a broader trend. Nations preparing for future conflicts are no longer interested only in purchasing military equipment. They also want access to the operational lessons, technological innovation, and battlefield experience that Ukraine has accumulated over years of high-intensity combat. The Philippines may now be joining that growing network. Whether this emerging partnership ultimately leads to technology transfer, joint production, military training, or a broader defense agreement remains uncertain. Those decisions will depend on negotiations that are only just beginning. What is already clear, however, is that this historic visit marks an important milestone in Ukraine-Philippines relations. It did not produce a signed drone contract, but it may have launched something just as significant: the foundation of a long-term defense partnership between a European country transformed by modern warfare and an Indo-Pacific nation adapting to an increasingly complex maritime security environment. If that partnership continues to develop, its significance may extend well beyond drones. It could become another example of how Ukraine is reshaping its global role, from a nation primarily receiving military support to one increasingly sharing its battlefield experience, defense technologies, and strategic expertise with partners around the world.